Hello and thank you for joining us this morning. You're watching our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Friday, March 20th. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Shin Se-min. Before we get started, here are the stories we're following at this hour. South Korea and the U.S. sign a $60 billion currency swap to reduce the liquidity crunch caused by the global spread of the coronavirus fears. The BOK says the last time it did a currency swap with the U.S. was during the 2008 financial crisis. The U.S. State Department has raised its global travel advisory for all American citizens, warning them not to travel outside the country. Level 4, the highest advisory, calls on all U.S. citizens to consider returning to the U.S. immediately through whatever commercial means are available. Plus, the coronavirus pandemic has also brought auto factories to a standstill. South Korea's Hyundai and Kia Motors overseas plants in the U.S. and in Europe have now stopped over the COVID-19 outbreak. Our starting point this morning, the number of confirmed cases and deaths from COVID-19 keep on rising around the world. So far, there have been 220,000 cases worldwide with over 9,800 deaths. One of the hardest hit countries is Italy, and the health authorities there say the national death toll reached 30,405 as of 6 p.m. Thursday local time. Now, this is more deaths than reported in mainland China, where the death toll stands at 3,245. The U.S. is also grappling with the pandemic as the number of confirmed cases there doubled in just 2 days. The confirmed patients has surpassed 13,000, with the death toll standing at 193 as of Thursday local time. The U.S. State Department has issued its highest level of travel advisory for all American citizens, warning them not to travel abroad due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory warns all citizens to forego all international travel due to the outbreak. Authorities also called for American citizens based in the U.S. to arrange immediate return back to the U.S. in countries where departure is still available, unless they are prepared to remain abroad for an indefinite period of time. The Level 4 warning is a notch up from the Level 3 advisory put in place last week that recommended Americans to reconsider their international travel plans. South Korea and the U.S. have signed a $60 billion currency swap agreement with the aim of cushioning the global currency market that has been slammed by the rapid global spread of the coronavirus. The Bank of Korea here says the deal will be in effect for at least 6 months. Our Kim Hyo-sun with the details.
The central banks of Seoul and Washington have put pen to paper on a $60 billion bilateral currency swap agreement, a move expected to relieve a cash crunch caused by the rapid spread of the coronavirus. The Bank of Korea plans to immediately supply the U.S. banknotes it secures via the agreement. It also explained on Thursday that the move is expected to stabilize the local foreign exchange market that has been experiencing a rapid change in the exchange rate due to a recent shortage of dollars. The Korean won fell by 41 to close at 1,285.7 won against the U.S. greenback on Thursday. This was the lowest seen in over a decade as investors rushed to the hard currency, deemed as a safer asset.
The agreement will greatly help the financial market by stabilizing the recent rapid changes in the exchange rate between the U.S. dollar and Korean won.
This marks the second deal of its kind to be signed with the U.S., with the first $30 billion deal signed in October 2008 at the height of the global financial crisis. Back then, the agreement was originally set to expire after 6 months, but was extended twice until February 2010. Seoul currently has currency swap lines with 8 countries, including Australia, Canada, and China. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The Bank of England cut interest rates to an all-time low of 0.1% on Thursday amid the COVID-19 pandemic dampening economic circumstances around the world. It is the second emergency rate cut by the BOE in around a week. The bank also promised bond purchases worth some $230 billion. It had already slashed interest rates from 0.75% to 0.25% last week for the first time since 2016, as well as pledging to restart purchasing government bonds and corporate debt. The coronavirus outbreak has prompted South Korean carmakers to temporarily cease operations at their overseas plants. According to Hyundai Motor Company on Thursday, its plant in the U.S. state of Alabama shut down on Wednesday after an employee tested positive for the virus. Kia Motors suspended production on Thursday as it couldn't get the engines it needed from the Hyundai's plant in Alabama. The companies are consulting with U.S. health authorities on when to resume their production. The automaker's European plants have also been hit. Hyundai Motors plants in the Czech Republic and Kia's in Slovakia will shut for 2 weeks starting next Monday. Also, starting next week, Tesla will said that it will be suspending production at its Fremont, California factory in the face of the COVID-19 outbreak. The U.S. and China appear to be locked in a race for the right to say that they have the first coronavirus vaccine in the world. Now, this comes as President Trump announced that the FDA is closing in on the treatment, while China has been given the go-ahead for the human trials of a potential vaccine. Our Lee Seung-jae with more.
U.S. President Donald Trump signaled yet another tough stance on the country's fight against COVID-19 on Thursday, as he declared war on the deadly virus. Saying America's big war is not a financial war, but a medical war. He announced that an existing drug prescribed for malaria and some forms of acute arthritis was among a range of drugs being tested for treating COVID-19 and could be available to the public. While the FDA chief said later it was too early to say when it would be available, Trump's declaration of war against COVID-19 signaled the start of the race between the U.S. and China to find a vaccine. Earlier this week, China gave the go-ahead for researchers to begin human testing of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine. Researchers at China's Academy of Military Medical Science received approval to launch early-stage clinical trials of the potential vaccine. According to the Chinese Clinical Trial Registration Database, researchers will enter a Phase 1 test, which will examine whether the experimental shot is safe for humans, as they plan to recruit 108 health experts to take part from March to December. Meanwhile, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced that COVID-19 can be serious for young adults, signaling that the virus can affect people of all ages. Latest data from the CDC show that among the roughly 12% of COVID-19 cases in the U.S. known to require hospitalization, about 1 in 5 were those aged 20 to 44. Health officials added older adults and people with underlying medical conditions still face a higher risk of complications. The World Health Organization says it does not expect any fully tested or approved vaccine to be available to the public until the mid-2021. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Adding to the growing laundry list of COVID-19 cancellations, U.S. President Donald Trump has scrapped a gathering of G7 leaders that had been scheduled to take place in June at Camp David. The deputy press secretary at the White House said Thursday that the meeting will instead be held via video conference in accordance with measures to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus. Now, the decision will keep each country from spending the money that it would have taken to prepare for and travel to the U.S. and will also free up staffers who would have been planning for the summit. As COVID-19 continues to spread in South Korea and in other parts around the world, copper is coming under the spotlight as a material that can potentially kill the virus. And as a result, products are hitting shelves that are made with or contain the metal. Our Kim Bo-kyung with the details.
This protective face mask looks different to the typical white ones we see attached to people's faces as they walk the streets in South Korea. Special fiber combined with copper and iron covers the mask surface, making it suitable to protect wearers against certain viruses. According to Jeonbuk National University and the company that invented this blue mask, 99.8% of a virus died within 1 minute of coming into contact with the mask and had disappeared within 10 minutes.
We figure out how fast the virus dies with this fabric, and we prove it can survive past 60 seconds.
Another face mask made with string coated with copper has gone viral, and sales have skyrocketed in South Korea. Protective film made with copper that can cover elevator buttons and air purifiers with copper filters are also popular. To see whether copper products are really reliable virus killers, the U.S. National Institutes of Health compared copper with other materials such as plastic and stainless steel. It found COVID-19 survived for 72 hours on plastic and 48 hours on stainless steel. However, it was dead after just 4 hours on copper.
Copper is reportedly effective in killing around 20 types of virus and theoretically effective in killing all viruses.
Experts say copper itself is effective in killing viruses and bacteria. Yet, watchers say consumers need to see how effective each product made with copper is before they use them to protect themselves. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Media outlets have been reporting on the amazing work done by nurses and healthcare professionals in South Korea during this time of the coronavirus outbreak. And local residents have also come together to recognize their sacrifice and show gratitude through a special campaign. Our Lee Kyung-eun tells us more.
Norway's With You. This campaign is going viral in South Korea as people show their respect and thanks to all the nurses that are fighting COVID-19 on the front line. First, you have to handwrite the hashtag, which means that the nurses will always be with you. Then you post your message on Instagram and pick 3 people who will then pass it on to another 3 people. For each post uploaded, about 50 cents will be donated to improving the working environment for nurses. The campaign began with one former nurse who came out of retirement to help fight COVID-19 and is currently working in Andong, Gyeongsang-buk-do province. He wanted to raise people's awareness of nurses who have to be ready to help their patients 24/7 and face extreme pressure both physically and mentally.
Within 10 minutes, your whole body is sweating, and that sweat is trapped inside the waterproof suit. Then you get extremely hot, and the heat goes up to your head, making your goggles humid. It makes your eyes water, and they get really itchy. But we're also fighting the fear of getting infected and possibly passing on the virus to our own families and others.
And there are other challenges that they could face. Some in the media call those who resign irresponsible without knowing the whole story. And there are people who think nurses are dangerous just because they've had contact with confirmed patients, which is also not true. But there are also moments that keep them going.
When our patients recover and leave the hospital, we feel we made the right choice coming here. But then also, the hospital can't go on for one day without nurses, and especially due to the shortage, we know how every single one of us is so critical. It is that sense of responsibility.
Proper meals, better pay, and advanced equipment are all still needed to improve nurses' working conditions. But cheerful messages that this kind of campaign brings to them from around the country help nurses feel appreciated.
Stay strong.
Thank you and cheer up. Your work is hope to us. We will always remember your efforts.
Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
Shifting focus, Seoul and Washington have failed to reach an agreement on their extension to their defense cost-sharing deal, despite the allies' unprecedented decision to extend their latest talks in Los Angeles by an extra day. South Korea's foreign ministry explained Friday that the allies have failed to narrow their differences on how much Seoul should pay for the upkeep of more than 28,000 American troops on the Korean peninsula. Now, the latest stalemate raises concerns that nearly 9,000 South Koreans who work for U.S. Forces Korea could be put on unpaid leave starting in April, as the U.S. has warned numerous times.
Good morning. The winds have died down, but parts of Gangwon province are under a preliminary strong wind advisory for tonight, while a dry weather advisory remains in place for many parts of the southeast. Ideal conditions for forest fires. In fact, Korea Forest Service has released an orange alert for wildfires, so we need to be very careful with anything that could start a fire. Today is the spring equinox, so winter is now totally behind us. The chilly morning should turn mild for Seoul, getting up to 14 degrees Celsius. Daegu and Gyeongju will be as warm as yesterday, topping out at 19. Jeju, however, will be about 4 degrees cooler today. Spring warmth is shaping up to stay with us from now, with bright skies to dominate most regions for the next few days. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
That is our time at this hour on Arirang News. As always, thank you for watching and goodbye.